And when it says that the kavod of Yahuwah will be regarded across the face of the earth as a projected future event, the way the water covers the sea, the only way for the kavod of Yahuwah to cover the earth is for everybody on the face of the earth to come to this same realization and come back to this language whereby it sees and appreciates the depth, the significance, the clarity, whereby his own majesty is expressed by his own words, by his own voice, in his own 7 days of creation, his own Mishkan, his own Moedim, his own Mashiach Yeshua, who articulated and walked out these matters, all of which was his Ruach. It's a combination of all these things. This format of these videos, writing about the Greek and Roman and Viking deities, or the Chinese figures and beliefs, or Taoism or Buddhism, or the Zohar, or the Mayan calendar. It's not about that. Even if they had, we can't, because we're trying to zero in on this, ma ana Yahweh, ma dabar Yahweh. We can't allow other resh, ayin, hey, other thoughts, other shouts, other noises, other attempts at making sense out of things that Yahweh scrambled to be Babylonic. Babel is confusion. Bet Lamed, that's what the word means. Nun Bet Lamed, Nabal, is also one who is foolish or confused or idiotic. If we consider that only in the Hebrew, only in Yahuwah's personal expressions are the true clarity. So his personal expression of, in Hebrew, of Genesis chapter 1, the 7-day sequence of creation, his personal expression when he said to Moshe in Exodus 25, make this Mishkan according to this pattern, this tabanit, very specifically, this tabanit, this Mishkan. Okay, that's Yahweh's stuff. It's not of human origin. And then when he said, these are my moedi, Leviticus 23, these are my festivals. They're not Jewish holidays. They're Yahuwah's ornamentation. And then when Yeshua sat down on the mountain, Matthew 5, and said, he opened his mouth, that's the word pezadi, and he taught them saying, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Well, it fits the Mishkan pattern. It fits this. So I can see that and read that as divine concepts coming through this human agent's mouth. When I say he's a human agent, I know I'm setting up, what about the divinity of Christ? Well, that's another conversation. I'm not denying that he came from the heavens, the Aleph to the Bet, but how we should regard him is a conversation. What I'm saying is that what we need to be doing on this page, as all of us should be doing with our life, is ma'anah Yahweh, ma'dabar Yahweh. And so to make it our purpose on this venue, this Skype recording, on the Eriktology page at large, is not to drag in the other cultures, the other Elohim Achrim, the other traditions, the other writings, and say, yeah, but there might be something good there. Rumi, the Arabic poet, might have said something pretty interesting. You know those Sufi dancers, the ones that twirl around with their hands, you know, two different shapes, and they just spin and spin and spin, whirling dervish. Is that a good thing to do? I'm not even going to try to analyze it. What about saying the word Om? Om. What if that was the word Ayin Mem? Well, if it's Ayin Mem and Yahweh says, you're going to be Ayin Mem Yod, you're going to be my Ayin Mem. Hey, what's he want us to be? Well, that's the question. So if anybody says the word Om, well, that has to do with some Hindu New Age transcendental resonance. I'm not going to go there. If I see the word OM, and correlate it to ayin mem, and Yahweh says, I'm going to be your Elohim and you're going to be my people. Well, what does it mean to be his people? Think the way he said to think. Don't think about the stuff he said not to think about. Construct your consciousness. Manage your own sanity. And how do you do that? See, this phrase in two parts, Ma Debar Yahweh. What did Yahweh say? Well, he said there was to be a blessing and a curse according to the stipulations, whether we regard what he said or don't regard what he said. That's the Debar. What's the Ayin Nun Hey? Ayin Nun Hey is the act of evaluating the Debar. You can only Ayin Nun Hey by looking at the spelling of the words of what did he say. It means to be in a furrow of interest, purpose, intention, voracious about, concerned about, occupation, busy about. How do you be busy about what? It's embedded in the word. Ayin Nun Hey. Hey is a suffix. Ayin Nun, look at the derivative with a vav or a yod stuck in between. Ayin Yod Nun is the word ayin, like the name of the eyeball, and it means literally look carefully. Look at, balance exactly, weigh carefully, determine precisely, put in scales of balance. How do you do that? You have to have something to weigh. You have to have pieces of the puzzle to figure, to configure. What I'm saying is that embedded within the structure of the wording of the language is validating the task of analyzing the structure of the wording of the language. I personally don't see any other way to accomplish this task. It's the self-referential thing of Hebrew that Hirsch was talking about. It's to see the Mishkan pattern laid out in the first 7 letters, laid out between Het and Kuf, Kuf being the pillar of fire and smoke that was above the tabernacle, which isn't really part of the Mishkan pattern. It really stops in Zadi, but that's just this other component. What I'm saying is that Yahweh's own declaration of himself seems to handle it all. So therefore, someone had put up on one of the comments the other day, pages out of the Zohar or paragraphs out of the Zohar talking about certain demonic entities' names. Now, I know that I was having a conversation with somebody and they mentioned something about the word Lilith. Lilith, is that a bad thing to talk about? Well, that's the name of Frasier's wife in the TV show Cheers, right? Remember Lilith? She looked kind of ghoulish, kind of goth. Frasier, that's a TV show. Why'd they call her Lilith? I don't know, it's just her name. The word Lila means night. Remember Delilah? Lila, one who Samson's girlfriend that was responsible for his eyes to be plucked out. So she was actually his door to night. Delilah, door to night, door to darkness. Because of her, they ripped out his eyeballs. Thanks, Delilah. Is it bad to mention the word Delilah? And then a few years ago, some female rock and rollers put together a troupe, as it were, that went on going to different cities. I live up in Portland, Oregon, and one of them was up there somewhere, and it was called Lilith Fair. Lilith Fair. And I thought, why would they call it Lilith Fair? So that's what first perked my interest to even look at this. And then it turns out, you look in Klein's dictionary under, the word Shada, Shin Dalet Hey, can mean female demon. Lilith can be the name of a female demon. It's like, well, where do you come up with that? Well, then it turns out that there's this fable, this myth, that Adam and Eve, well, it wasn't just Adam and Eve. There was another lady involved, and her name was Lilith. What? It's not in the Bible. It's not in Genesis. Well, how does anybody know what this is? Well, but she was an evil lady, a demonic wife. Was it before Eve or after Eve? I don't know. I don't know the story. Well, it turns out it's in the Kabbalah. It's in the Zohar. Oh, gosh. I didn't know that's where that was. I didn't know that's where they came up with that. And so for somebody to take the text out of the Kabbalah and lay it onto our site and say, this is where that comes from. Oh, gosh. Well, thank you for the information. However, we have to sit here and say, are we going to promote that, tolerate that, be about that? And it's like, gosh darn it. It's information. It's learning. It's like learning about the Greek and Roman deities in LA Baptist High School. It's just wrong somehow. So, but we have to make the determination for ourselves what's right and wrong. So based on Ma Ana Yahweh, Ma Debar Yahweh, we have to say, look, we don't want that up on the site. We're also not going to talk about the Viking deities or the Viking runes. For me to mention the word Ogam or rune, or Nigel Pennick wrote a book about magical alphabets. I have his name, doing him the honor. Somebody gave me this book to read, and I have his name on the bottom of the chart. Nigel Pennick. What? That guy wrote about magical alphabets. What? The only reason I mention it is to not plagiarize and say, listen, this guy did a bunch of research, like Stan Tenen, looking at stuff and saying, I respect what he did. I'm not going there, but I'm acknowledging his name and saying, I'm not telling anybody else they should go there, but he was saying other cultures of the past regarded that the alphabets were sacred. They're not just human compilations of ideas. They're sacred somehow. What does that even mean? The word sacred doesn't even fit our culture unless it's holy water. How do you get holy water? Why would holy water suddenly be taboo when COVID hit? So they have to shut off the holy water fountains in cathedrals. I don't get it. Is it holy or is it not holy? Is it sacred or is it not sacred? I'm saying this is a difficult thing to be about the exclusive, what's the kadosh of Yahweh? And that's the problem. So let me jump ahead to a page that I'll have to send you, Kurt. You don't have. I was just looking at this today. This is, if I just talk about verse 9 of Jeremiah 23 for a moment. We talked about it the other day. Lamed Nun Bet Aleph Yod Mem La Nevi'im. Well, Yod Mem is plural, so Nun Bet Aleph, that's the word prophet or Nevi. Oh, wait a minute. Aleph Yod Mem can also mean terror. Bet Aleph means to arrive, and Nun is like this lightning bolt, or here comes, incoming arrival of terror. Whoa, that's like, being in a war zone and you hear that whistling sound of bombardment. Lamed is the prefix letter meaning regarding, but it's just translated about the prophets. Then here's the word Nun, Shin Bet Resh, na shiver. Well, that's like the word shiver. Shiver me timbers. Your legs are rattling. Your timbers are your legs, which are your strong things. So the next couple words later, when it says oats or etzemot, ayin zadi mem vav tav. Well, ayin zadi mem is bones, bone. Vav tav is plural. Yod suffix means my. So etzemoti means my bones. Kol etzemoti means all my bones or every bone. And then the prefix letter is the verb before the noun, which is ret, chesh, pei, vav. Ret, het, pei means flutter, quiver, unstable, or it's the word pollen in the air. Pollen in the air. Now, see, they're giving you kind of adverbs or verbs, fluttering, quivering, unstable. Pollen in the air is a noun, but it's a picture. So the language works by trying to show you pictures. So what I was trying to say earlier, you look at the narrative, oh, it's like a little bit of water, and then it gets real nasty. It's a tar pit. There's a fish hook. Stay back. And somehow you got to get through that, through the bad part of it'll drive you insane. And on the other side of the bad part, there's this reality of what's really going on. So if you don't regard the surface, the shimmering water, the mirage, or if you don't know that there's a way to get trapped and really bad things done to you by getting stuck in this tar of deception, distortion, but you have to stay with the Hebrew to find out where the truth of the matter is. Yahuwah himself. And it's not in the Greek, Roman, English, surface. It's not in the translations and concordances. That's like the tar underneath. But it's in Yahweh's own self revealed, his Edi, his Mishkan pattern on the other side. So what do we have here? The word shavar means to break and crumble, like the bones that are supposed to be stable disintegrate, like the columns of the Parthenon that the Yamad Basodi, they don't stand, but they crumble and fall down. It's like, well, then they're not, but Yamad Basodi. But see, this also, if you look in the dictionary, means to solve a mystery. Oh, the mystery is something like bones that are solid, and if you can tell what the picture is in the bones, now you've gone beyond the quagmire, beyond the tar, to find the reality. So see, even this word itself is showing us the process. It says to break a dream, to decode a dream, to realize that a dream is a picture that means something. You have no idea what it means. And if you start looking at the surface and then you read the rest of Jeremiah 23, where it says, woe to those who just sit there and tell their dreams or tell their visions or lead my people astray by these other myths and fables. And it's like, how would you break the code? The Mishkan pattern is the key that breaks the code. And then it says, Lavi, well, that's my heart. But see, I can also read shiver as to break a dream, to break my heart. Then noon is like this lightning bolt, or this action of breaking my heart. So then, going back to the beginning, there's the riving of terror. Because of my broken heart? Whose broken heart? Elvis Presley, hey, we could sing some songs about that. This is about Yahuwah's broken heart. Yahweh has a broken heart. For what cause? Yahweh's broken heart is because we won't listen to what he said. And if we do listen to what he says, we do exactly what he said not to do. And it's been that way for a couple thousand years, 3,000 years since David, 3,500 years since Moses, 4,000 years since Abraham. Because we won't regard what he said, because we won't listen to his voice, because we won't ayin nun hey Yahweh and regard the dalet bet resh of Yahweh, his heart has been broken. And he says that other places. And if we don't even care, then we're done. But the next word here is bet kufresh bet yod. Yod is my, bet in the condition of, so kufresh bet means inside. So my insides resh het pay flutter. So I could read this as break, my heart's broken, my insides flutter, every bone. Exist like a man drunk, intoxicated, and like a strong man unfit, unstrong, no longer what he was on account of wine. And then it says, mifnei Yahweh va mifnei debari kadosho. Just real fast going through that. Because of mifnei, mem penun yod. Penun yod, mem, panim is the word for face. Lifnei, lamed penun yod, means according to the face. Mem is the place of the face or away from the face. So when you have the Aaronic benediction and it says, may he lift up his countenance upon you, the word countenance is penei. Is it countenance? How do you lift up your countenance? If someone gives you a scowl or somebody suddenly very happy, is that lifting up his countenance upon you? May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace, the Aaronic benediction. Lift up his countenance. Well, maybe that means he turns his disposition towards you, being beneficent instead of hostile. The word penun means to turn. So this is penun yod, his face. Well, your face turns different expressions. So the fact that something can be disposed one way or another is the essence of the word face. So mem penun yod can mean the place of, or the because of, or it can be now turning towards, being different, or turning away. See, there's half a dozen different ways that you could read this word. So here's one way to read verse 9. Hey, have you heard? I heard this the other day, that And if it's the accurate number, this is what somebody told me. 70,000 athletes across the world in the last couple years have died while doing their athletic routines, playing sports or lifting weights, running, whatever they were doing, ever since this big COVID thing going on. 70,000 athletes have collapsed on the field because of heart attacks. Did you hear about that? Is that accurate? See, what I just did was give you another way to interpret this first verse. The first three words. Incoming news of something terrible, noon, lamed, noon, bet, alf, yod, mem, involving breaking hearts. Athletes, strong men, suddenly decomposed as if they were drunk, collapsed onto the ground. These guys are supposed to be our best, most talented, healthiest, strongest, and they're collapsing, dropping like flies, as some might say. That's what this verse is talking about. How can that be? How can this verse be talking about something that's happening around the world here in 2022? Sure looks like it is. Stumbling and falling like a guy totally drunk. So it catches my attention. Now, am I saying that that's what Jeremiah had a picture of? I don't know what he had a picture of. I'm just looking at his words. So I can say news of athletes having heart attacks is the first three words, but I can also read it to say, nowadays there's a lot of prophecies of terror. Cause my heart to shudder. You can look on the internet and find different so-called prophetic people talking about, oh, this is like the tribulation upon us, and the NWO is planning this, and the World Economic Forum is planning that, and the Illuminati and the J-Boys are planning this, and the commies and the Americans and the British are planning that, and the CIA and the KGB and the FBI and the MI6, and it's like, oh, gosh. Causing my heart to shudder, like, oh, or causing my heart to, where do I look? Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to look. I don't know what to listen to. I don't know who to believe. Yeah, that's what that means. My insides flutter at the approach of war. All my bones collapse like a drunk man, like a conqueror, himself conquered by alcohol. What's there to be afraid of? What's there to be afraid of? Have you not been listening? Let me tell you a few things. Oh, no, now we're going to be labeled conspiracy theorists. So I won't tell you about those things. Are they true? Are they, I don't know. I could tell you a few theories, but solve the mystery. Oh, that's right. They're mysteries. Solve the mystery. That's the word nun, shin bet resh. My broken heart. Whose heart? Well, see, if I take this out of me and out of the news and out of the athletes, and I say this is about Yahuwah and Israel. It's all about Yahuwah and Israel. That's the bottom line. What the whole paradigm is about. Yahweh with Israel. What exactly is the conflict? Where are the battle lines? There's so many lies. Good versus evil, truth versus falsehood. What's solid versus what's quivering instability? What is the battle about here? Is it north and south? Is it this flag versus that flag? Is it this color of people versus that color of people? I mean, I don't even know what sides anybody's on anymore. Is the whole thing smoke and mirrors, song and dance? You know, what's really going on? Oh, what's really going on is I have to construct my composure, my amad, according to the basodi of Yahuwah. That's all. All this other stuff is just what people are doing because they're running around Babel, frantic, lunatic. The reality is, what did Yahweh say and what did he compose? What did he build? What's his amad basodi? It's right there in the alphabet letters, keyed to the Mishkan pattern. Who are we as his people Israel? What does that mean? How are we supposed to think when he says, fear not? Yeah, but he didn't know about what they're saying now. He was talking about some other stuff. No, he was saying, fear not. Don't even allow your head to go there. The result of us feeding on fiction, that's basically ka'ish sakur. The word sakur means intoxicated or drunk. Shin kaf av resh. but it also means you get wages or remuneration. You get what you pay for. If you go to a bar and say, hey, I want a shot of this or that, and they give it to you and say, man, I don't taste any alcohol, and you wait a few minutes, hey, I paid to get drunk and I don't feel drunk. You ripped me off. I don't know what you gave me, but it wasn't the good stuff. Give me the good stuff. I deserve, if I give you some money, I deserve to get the feeling of what I'm paying for. That's the word shin kaf vav resh. So when people do certain things, they expect to get. In other words, if you go to a scary movie and you don't get scared, you got ripped off. Stupid filmmakers. I want you to scare me if I pay you to go to a scary movie. Oh, okay. How do we make a really scary movie? Some people are looking for that product. Okay, so the question is, what's all the people of the earth trying to look for? Well, what is Yahweh looking for? For Yeshua to come and die on the cross. That was one heck of a price. What was he buying? Was he buying some nice songs that we sing in church? Is that why he came and did that? Think about that. We're going to get that to in a minute. Think about this. I'm being gross on purpose. For Yeshua to come down here, do a bunch of wonderful things, tell us a bunch of wonderful insights, and then allow himself to be his skin ripped apart like that movie Mel Gibson's The Passion. That was pretty graphic. They had little barbs in the Roman flail of pieces of pottery and metal fish hooks. And when those guys would lay it into your flesh and just rip, they were just ripping the flesh to pieces. You know, you see pictures of Jesus hanging on the crucifix and there's, you know, a couple little stripes here and there. I believe it was probably more like Mel Gibson's model. That other one's almost an offense of what he endured. But why did he endure that? That's the point. Why did he come down here and pick up that burden of affliction? Why did Yeshua willingly, according to the narrative gospel story, why did he willingly allow that to be done to him? Why did he pick up that cross? And remember, he tried to carry it and he collapsed and they picked it up and they stuck it on another guy and made him carry it. But why would, that's what he was carrying. Why? Because we're infidels. Because we betrayed him. We betrayed what was entrusted to us as Israel by Yahuwah. And that word Pekuf Dalet, pronounced FQD, Yahweh says, visiting the iniquity upon those who hate me to the third and fourth generation. It's one of the 10 commandments. You're going to be FQD'd. Well, that's like a story of the talents. The guy going away called his servants. He gave them certain talents, certain jobs to do, certain things he entrusted them with, certain laws, certain information, certain privileges, and then he left and he's going to come back and say, what'd you do with what I gave you? Israel was entrusted with the Torah. Israel's entrusted with the truth. Israel is entrusted with these words. And once we choose to be his people and come back to these words, he's going to say, what did you do with my words? That's what this chapter is about. And if we spend our time feeding on fiction, saturating ourselves with transgression, it carries us away from the regard of Yahweh. That's the effect. So this to say mifnei, yod yod nun is a derivative word of the word above it, hey yod yod tav yod. My bones have become. So yod yod nun is to become. Well, it's also the word wine. Wine is, I'm going to drink this because I want its effect. I'm going to study these things because I want to get the mind and the heart. I'm going to watch and be entertained by these matters and stories because I want to conduct my heart to believe a certain thing. So I'm either going to be about the fiction of all the world's Elohim Achrim, or I'm going to be about the words of Yahuwah because I want the effect of the consciousness that it builds and the relationship that it conducts between me as Israel, as the Ayin Mem of Yahuwah, with Yahuwah himself, his heart. And if his heart's pained, my heart's pained. Why? What's the issue? Suddenly that becomes our everything. And so when it says here, the last of this verse, Mifnei Yahweh va mifnei dabri kadosho, everything I learned was real. Church, school, institutions, Greco-Roman history, science, mathematics, history, culture, archaeology. I could look at any field, astronomy, and realize it's all like human drunkenness. Sanity appears insane. Stature looks slovenly. Statues of heroes have crumbled. Isn't it interesting that last year in North America, renegade savages were tearing down statues of our supposed heroes? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Gee, I don't know. As an American patriot, why, that's a bad thing. But as a Yahwinian, as some people say, that's probably a good thing. Get rid of your lies. Get rid of your idols. The stories they're telling you aren't true anyway. That fits into this verse. That's a current event with this verse. When the face of Yahuwah becomes apparent in my attention to his kadosh matters. So now nothing else matters. I'm reading verse 9. That's not the way it reads. If you look at the rest of the translations, this is basically saying, if you read the end of the verse before you go back to the beginning of the verse again, and I'm trying to say there's different ways to sit there, process over and over and over and over again these verses. If I read the last phrase of this verse, Mifnei dabri kadosho, when I turn my face, pene, my face, toward the word that he stipulated as the family secrets, the foundation of the blessing and the curse between Yahuwah and Israel. His kadoshness, his perspective, his regard, having nothing to do with institutions of church, of state, of culture, or of family. When I look at his stuff, then I back up. Everything else looks like heroes falling into the vomit of their own wine. Suddenly that brings another really interesting passage to mind. It's a little matter of 3.5 years, only it doesn't say 3.5 years. In Daniel chapter 12, it mentions time, times, and half a time, but there's one other place that it mentions it. I believe it's back in Daniel 9 or 7. It says, Ed adin, adnin, ve peleg aden. Until time, times, and half time, 3.5 years. No, wait a minute. What's it say? Ayin dalit. That's a witness. It's a testimony. It's an indicator. Like go down the road until you see the blinking light. It's a blinking light. It's an indicator. It tells you when. Ayin dalit nun. Well, that's the word Eden, like the Garden of Eden, which means everything's wonderful. And then adanin, ayin dalit nun, yod nun. Well, the nun yun suffix, like Elohim, El Elyon, adding the Yod Nun, the Vav Nun is the highest, the best. So it's really wonderfully great, really wonderfully great. So Eden, like I said before, last week, is where you get the word hedonism. Hedon in English is like somebody out for pleasure, everything wonderful, like the Garden of Eden. Everything was wonderful and pleasure. What were they going to do? They didn't have to go look for transportation. They didn't have to build a home. They didn't have to worry about their wardrobe. It's like, what were they going to do? But yet Yahuwah built into the earth, into the fabric of all the molecular structure, the ability for humans to engage in all this industrial activity that we see today throughout the ages as it's changed from one era to the next. He knew we were going to do this. He made it possible for us to do this. But what were they going to do? It just makes you think about what is this an offense to him that we live in cities? I've heard people suggest it so. Or is it something that he'd hope we'd do, that he was looking forward to when the little kid not only can crawl on the ground, but hop on his bicycle and zoom around the streets? I mean, is that a good thing for a parent to see? Or is that, oh, I wish he'd stay home? It's like, gosh, we hear all these crazy stories. The question is, what is really going on? Who is Yahweh? What's his relationship with Israel? What does he expect of us? What's he want from us? And it looks like learning his language is the primary thing that he built in from the very beginning. For until the time when the good things become really good, can we look at 2020 and say, that's about the best it's ever been? Now, some people on the face of the earth had really difficult times. And I'm not suggesting that that was the ideal that says, gosh, the politics, the culture, the availability of food, the availability of fuel to drive your car, medical development. I mean, it would be hard to sit there and say, well, that was Adenin. That was about the best it could ever get. I could picture getting a lot better. But all of a sudden you get this word Peleg, which means compromised, broken apart, separated, alienated, mapped, or delineated. It's like athletes dying of heart attacks. It's like you get what you paid for, succor. It's like, really, you guys are going to take this and bust it apart. You guys are going to just fragment the whole thing. You guys are going to just now tear everything apart, separate, alienate everybody so that everybody has to wear a mask to stay 6 feet apart. Everybody has to stay indoors. Everybody has to quarantine. Everybody can't go to work, shutting down thousands of businesses and killing millions of people. That sure looks like Peleg Aden. Yeah, but where's the 3.5 years? We're always told that this means 3.5 years, time times and half a time, but that's not what it says. It's describing a time that looks like 2020, 21, and 22. A man's way is returned upon his own head. That's the Paneh of Yahweh. That's Yahweh's face. That's the Sod of Yahweh. So the Amad Basod is understanding that when Yahweh says a man's way is returned upon his own head, and when the people of the earth make it their business to revel in fiction and death, you know, like all the movies that Hollywood puts out, fiction and death, you're going to get what you paid for. You paid for a good, strong drink. That's what you're drinking. Insanity and death and a decomposition of your entire culture across the face of the earth. Hey, that's what's happening now. So I can look at not only this prophecy in Daniel, but I can look at this thing in Jeremiah 23 and say, oh, that's what's happening now. Okay, real quick, I'm going to go back to verse 18. If I can find where I wrote it. This is where it's talking about the Amad Basodi. So Yahweh's, we're not going to get through the whole thing. We're running out of time. But if I go back to verse 18, let me just pick up at 13, which is page 7, dated August 6th. Jeremiah 23, verse 13. Vav bet, nun bet, yod, aleph, yod. Well, there he's talking about, again, if I just say nun bet aleph or nun bet yod aleph, that's prophetic, or the prophet, or the prophetic word. Arriving, incoming, here's a prophecy. Shin mem resh, well, that's shamar, that's to watch, keep guard. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And if it ends in vav nun, so it's shamron, well, that's the name of the northern areas. Samaria is the way it's translated. And it's like, is it talking about Samaria? Is it talking about prophets? Or is it talking about a prophetic word that's supposed to be watching and guarding? Resh Aleph Yod Tav Yod, I have or I will. Resh Aleph Yod means to see or put on exhibition or allowed to see. So I'm going to go kind of quickly here, but what I'm saying is that there's a bunch of different ways you can read this. Is this Yahweh speaking? Is this Jeremiah? The next word is tefillah, tav, pe lamed hey. Oh, that's the word prayer, so it must be a good thing. It also means par excellence. It's also the root word of paleo, pe lamed hey, wonderful, marvelous. But if you look at tav, pe lamed hey, in the dictionary, it means twisted, twined, subtle, snaky. Hey, that's like the nachash in the garden. Whitewashed, that's take something and put a fake cover so it looks like something else. That's espionage, that's trickery. Unsavory, tasteless, unsalted. Well, that's all negative stuff. Then the word hey, nun bet aleph vav, the prophet, bet ayin lamed. Well, here there's prophets who are, as an act of espionage or resh ayin, like deceptively sabotaging with Baal. Well, that's the Bet Ayin Lamed. That's translated Lord, Master, Husband, ownership over Canaanite chief idol. And then it says Vav Yod Tav Ayin Vav. That means to disappoint, swagger or stagger, wander, reel, mislead, deceive, misdirect. Aleph Tav hyphened with Ami, my people, Aleph Tav Israel. So Yahweh here is basically saying there's these guys that look like prophets, but by prophesying according to the Lord, oh, let's call it Baal, then we won't associate with it. Okay, because there were different lords, lord of the flies, Baal Zebub. Zebub is the word fly. Baal Zebub, lord of the flies. Lord of the mountain, lord of the valley, lord of the river. There's these lesser deities, like the Viking deities, like the Greek and Roman deities, or is there a chief deity? I'm just saying it's not Yahuwah, but there's priests and prophets that are supposedly be guarding over Yahuwah's flock, Yahweh's people. And is it intentional or is it unintentional? They're causing his people to stagger and wander. That's like being drunk, misled and deceived and misdirected. Verse 14, my prophet of Jerusalem. Well, the word Jerusalem means he will inherit at full capacity or welfare. In other words, you get what you pay for. It's another meaning of the word Jerusalem. And then Resh Ayin Yod Tav Yod, right? Shin Ayin Resh Vav Resh. Well, Shin Ayin Resh is the word. It's a synonym with Ayin Resh Kaf and Shin Mem Nun. It means to appraise, assess, evaluate, measure. That's a correlation with the word Ayin Yod Nun. So the way that you measure something, it means calculate, reckon, measure, market rate of exchange, or to revaluate. It also means horror, abomination, and hairy. So if you recalculate the scripture of what Yahweh said who he is and what he's going to do, and you turn it into the tribulation, really scary stuff. Or if you characterize it as his anger, Nun Aleph Vav Pei, which also is the word for adultery. Vav He Lamed Kaf. Vav means and, the walking besucker with lies, swindled, defrauded falsely. Vav Het Zion Kuf Vav, so strongly with enthusiasm. Yidi, my hand, Mem Resh Ayin Yod Mem. Well, there's the Resh Ayin, but the Mem can mean against. Lamed, Bet Lamed, Labal. Well, Bet Lamed, there's the word for foolish. Tav Yod, I have, but it means in order not to, I'll make sense of this in a moment. Shin Bet Vav, they return. Ish, man. Mem Resh Ayin Tav Vav. Oh, there's that word Resh Ayin Tav again. I've underlined those. So that means each man repent from their ideas or from their evil. Hey Yod Vav, exist Lamed Yod, mine, or exist as if they were mine. Kalam, all of them like Sodom, and return like Gomorrah. Yod Shin Bet, or dwell like Gomorrah. So let me put this together. He's saying, I have seen that the prophets, even if they have these wonderful, excellent prayers, they're deceiving my people. And I have seen that they evaluate what's really going on as if it was an adulterous relationship. In other words, if Yahweh said, you're supposed to listen to my voice, it's like, no, we're going to listen to somebody else's voice. You're supposed to observe these festivals. No, we're going to listen to the pagan festivals. You're going to keep this day Kadosh. No, we're going to invent a new day and make that Kadosh. That's adulterizing. Yahweh said, make no idols. Oh, we're going to put idols of your son crucified and stick them up on a wooden apparatus and say, this is what he picked up and carried. So this is what we're going to pick up and carry, though you said not to pick up and carry that stuff. What? With lies and falsehood, swindling, but with enthusiasm. So likewise, I'm going to respond to them, my hand with enthusiasm against them, in order that they can't return from their evil ideas as if they were mine. In other words, Yahweh says, I'm going to so encourage you in your willing, ignorant falsehood. I'm going to say, yeah, go for it. so that you won't know that I'm against it and you can't come back and find me. Why would he do that? Because he already gave us the method of coming back and finding him. It was paying attention to everything he said. And if we would rather pick up religion and culture and ideas and run with the things that the prophets are seeing instead of what he said, then he's going to completely disown us, and we will be overthrown like Sodom and Gomorrah. Verse 15, Lakan ka'amer, therefore, so says Yahweh Zavot El ha-navaim, over the prophets. But the word Zavot, Zadi Bet, Aleph Vav Tav, Zadi Bet is a knife handle stuck in. It looks at the shape of a cross. It means standing perpendicular. It's very similar to the word Amad, but it's not. Hineni, behold, here I am. Mem Aleph Kaf Yod Lamed. Mem, not eating. Aleph Vav Tav Mem, their oath. But Aleph Vav Tav is a sign or a symbol. They're as insignia. I'm not eating your insignia. Well, isn't there insignia the Eucharist? I'm not eating your fancy little religious cakes. I'm not buying it. Remember, you get what you eat. You get drunk on what you pay for. And as Yahweh saying, I'm having nothing to do with that. I'm not participating in your ceremonies. Gosh, you can disagree with me that this is what it means, but I wrote down here every word of the translation. Go look it up in other dictionaries, other lexicons, other concordances, if you dare to be so deceived by those sources, according to that book that I was telling you about. Relook, recalculate all what I wrote here. That's why we're putting them out here and giving them to you, so you don't have to take my word for it. What is Yahuwah talking about? What did he say, and what does he mean? Ayin Nun Hey, the Dabar of Yahweh. Figure for yourself. Do the work. Lamed, Ayin Nun Hey. That's the word. Answer, reply, sing, occupied. Lamed Ayin Nun Hey means bitter as wormwood. Vav He Shin Kuf Tav Yod Mem. The He Shin Kuf is what is given to drink. Shin Kuf Tav is a watering trough. Me, Mem Yod means who. Resh Aleph Sin is a head or the foundation, but it's also a source. Ki Mem Aleph Tav. So what is the source? What source of drink is my prophet drawing from? Nun Bet Yod Aleph Yod means my prophet. Mem Aleph Tav. What is the Aleph Tav source that my prophet is drawing from? And then it says Yerushalayim, or Yod Resh, go teach, instruct. Complete safe at ease is the word Shalem. The prophet of Yahweh should be talking about Yahweh's words and what he built and how does the whole relationship work and why his heart is broken. But what source is his prophet and his priest getting it from, such that Chet Nun Pei He, polluted, profaned, godless hypocrisy, Lachal Haaretz, unto the entire earth? Just look. That's why I mentioned the movie Zeitgeist a couple weeks ago. Not that I'm endorsing whoever wrote that, but I'm saying they're at least saying, look at the news items. Did you ever stop to think that something looks wrong? Do you ever stop to think for a moment we're being deceived? Do you think that maybe there's some credit to some of the conspiracy theories? Maybe they're not just theories. Maybe they're actually revelations of what the heck is really going on. Question is, by who, for what reason? And Leviticus 23 is all about that. It's Resh Ayin. It's intentional sabotage where the enemy has infiltrated our companions, prophets, pastors, shepherds. Resh Ayin. Resh Ayin Hey, our companions that we trust to lead and guide us. They're not leading us according to the words of Yahuwah. They're leading us according to the phrase of the Lord in ways that are not his. Verse 16. Ka Amer Yahweh Zavot. So says Yahweh Zavot. Aleph Lamed hyphen with Tav, Shin, Mem, Ayin, Vav. So it means do not listen, or it means towards listening. Ayin Lamed, Debri, my word. joined with, yoked with my word. The prophets, Hanevim, Lacham, unto you all, Mem, Hey Bet Lamed Yod Mem. They're joined to the nothingness. Vain breath, vapor, steam, here then gone, foolish, empty. They yoked with you visions of the heart and his own word, not from the mouth of Yahweh. Lo mefi Yahweh. And so the question is, how is it possible? Listen, here's these prophets, they're having visions, they're having dreams, oracles from heaven, and they're getting up in front of congregations and they're telling the dreams and the visions. And according to Deuteronomy 13, they might even come true. And yet Yahweh says, I never sent them, they're not from me. Then how's it happening? When Yahuwah Elohim created the universe, he built within it the possibility for witchcraft, astrology, sorcery, necromancy, demonology, and chazon, dreams and visions of prophets, to happen. He built it into the fabric to happen. And then he tells us, don't be deceived, don't be bamboozled, don't be tricked. Put your ayin on my dabar. That's the lifeboat. Verse 17, high words take off in flight, says, then here's the word, lamed mem nun aleph zadi yod. Mem nun aleph zadi, despised, blasphemed, contempt. How would you pronounce that? Nuts. Remember in, I think it was a Battle of the Bulge movie, they're fighting against allies who were held up, and I think it was Bastogne, and they were surrounded by the Nazis, and they send a message, and the guy sent back, nuts. And the German officer, I remember him looking at that and going, nuts. What's he mean, nuts? What is this? The American sending back the message, nuts? That's the word right there. Nun aleph zadi. The next phrase, Dabar Yahweh. They have despised and blasphemed with contempt. That's the word bozo. Dabar Yahweh. They don't care about the words of Yahweh from his mouth. How many pastors, teachers, prophets, professors regard the words of Yahweh from his mouth? Shalom, Yod-He, the reward, payment, complete, the retribution, the wages, that's like getting drunk, is also the synonym with the word shalom. Cause to exist unto all the walking, bet, sheen, resh. Glad, that's the word basar, glad tidings, gospel, fleshly meat, rule, reign, authority, denominations, laid the foundations of lavo, his heart, his saying, he's basically saying, the people that don't care about the word of Yahweh and says, it's not because of the way I walk, it's not from my heart that any more trouble is going to happen. I have nothing to do with it. But he's basically saying, the last two words, Ayin Lamed Yod Kaf Mem, your advancement is the expression of your own intention. Okay, I'm going to have to, 156, well, I'm going to have to quit here. We didn't even get through here. Where he starts talking about Masa Yahweh, let me just say that. That's a couple verses future. Verse 33, Mem Shin Aleph, Yahweh says, if any priest or prophet ever says these words again, anybody got a word from the Lord? Anybody got an oracle, a divine utterance? Anybody got a Masa Yahweh? Mem Shin Aleph is Masa. It's translated prophetic utterance, oracle, word. And he says, yeah, you want a word? I'm going to forsake you. Like what? He said, I'll never leave you or forsake you. So why is he saying in verse 33, yeah, the word is, I'm going to leave you. He said, no, he says, listen, this is the way it works. I give you my word, you attend to it, you get blessed. You don't attend to it, you get cursed. I forsake you, your enemies come in and ravage you. That's the Amad Basodi. Now, if you want a Masa, tell them, if you keep messing around with this stuff, I'm going to forsake you. That's the word. And he goes on for the next starting in verse 33, the whole rest of the chapter saying, if anybody mentions this phrase Masa Yahweh, well, what's Masa? Mem Shin Aleph, the thing that's picked up. The word Nun Shin Aleph, Nasa, means to pick up and carry, to carry somebody's burden, to be the creditor over a debtor, to be the husband over a wife, to pick up your wife and carry her over the threshold and say, all your concerns are now my concerns. The Masa is the cross that Yeshua picked up because we're infidels. And he says, if we trivialize that of what he came and did and say, oh, does anybody have a prophetic utterance? In his name, turning your back on everything that Yahweh said, so that he picked up all of our atrocities and made light of them so that we could make light of everything he said that was a heavy concern of his. The reason Yeshua picked up the cross was to alleviate us of our own burdens, not the burden of listening to him, but it's been turned around. It's been used as a trickery. It's been used to convolute the entire intent of 2,000 years, let's just say, of good-hearted, good-minded people who wanted to be Yahweh's people. But we've been walking in the deception of why he picked that up and what it meant, which is what this chapter is about, which is what we'll have to get into next week. So at this point, before it's quite time, I'll open it up back to you guys and see if there's anything else you want to add or contribute or disagree with. You're welcome to. Go ahead and turn on your mics and cameras.
As usual, it's very good teaching, Eric. Very good teaching. And it's like I tell my people and almost every Sabbath, there's two realities. There's Yahweh's reality, and then there's what the world believes. And if you read carefully what Yahweh says, it's so simple. Keep my commandments, and I will protect you. You will prosper, and all these other kind of things happen.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, Mark. Why don't we say, Yahweh, please change the heart of Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Biden. Open their eyes, then they can open their heart to see the reality of what's happening even now. We put them in your hands.
Amen. Because that's what we're commanded to do. Because what most people don't understand, it says in Scripture, it is Yahweh that appoints all the leaders. So you have Biden because Yahweh appointed it. We have Trudeau because Yahweh appointed it. Why did he appoint him? A man like Trudeau is because we're not keeping his commandments in the manner that he wants us to do it.
Okay. Yahuwah, our Elohim, our Father, we want to be your people. We want to be pleasing to you. We want to fulfill the opportunity that you have called us to be this generation at this time. Please open our eyes to see. Please open our hearts to attend to your matters in the complexity and the simplicity this time on the face of the earth, and put us in the positions, if you have to move us to different locations, whatever it might be, but help us to fulfill your dreams and to mend your broken heart and to be the people you've always wanted to ever see on the face of the earth. And bless us, please. We want it and need it, and we want to be your people. And thank you for the insight to your truth. Shem Yahusha.
Amen.
Hallelujah. Amen.
All right, the after show begins. See you guys next week. Thank you.